It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is John Eldredge, and we're going to be discussing his new book, Get Your Life Back, Everyday Practices for a World Gone Mad. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. It's good to finally get on your program.
Yes, I don't know how I have failed to have you on, but my apologies to the audience. John and I are finally making that right in this interview today. So if you've always longed to hear John and I have a conversation, it is definitely your lucky day. John, let's kick off our conversation today with a bit of what we might call the story behind the book. I'm always curious with this sort of a book, what gets an author moving down this particular path. So for you, was this a need that you saw with friends or family, a need you saw in your own life? This seems like the kind of book that you probably learned to apply for yourself to some degree. So why write Get Your Life Back? What got you moving in that direction?
I was fried, and I didn't like the feeling of being fried. But here, there were a couple of moments that really got my attention, and one was playing with my grandchildren. So we have little ones now, little tiny ones, 2 years old, and I found that I could be present to them for about 5 minutes, down on the floor, playing a game. But after about 5 minutes, I kind of wanted to check my phone, look at the news, see what's going on in the grown-up world. And I didn't like that. I didn't like, why is my soul so distracted? And why do I feel so shallow? I mean, I can't be present. And I didn't like not being able to be present to the people that I love. And then I picked up Nicholas Carr's book, which if you could get him would be a killer interview. He's got a book that he almost won the Pulitzer Prize for called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. And the title got me. I'm like, that's it, The Shallows. I feel like I've been pushed into the shallows of my life. It's go, go, go. It's boom, boom, boom. It's this to the next thing. And I didn't like what it was doing to my soul, right? Just my ability to enjoy things, appreciate people. And that began a journey a couple years ago. I wasn't even planning on writing a book on this. I just wanted to get better. Personally, I need to get my soul back. I need to get into a healthier place. How do I do that? And God, began to take me on a journey of kind of soul recovery. And as I shared that with family and friends, they're like, "Oh, you should write this."
Well, and I find often some of the best books don't start off on this intentional path, and a lot of times authors are seeking to solve a problem that they're facing, and then somebody's like, "Oh my gosh, I could use that in my life too." I'd love to have you talk a little bit more about some of the research you did related to the book. It seems like we're on this trajectory where we're all over connected. Social media has taken over our lives. Everything is beeping and dinging and lighting up constantly, 24 hours a day. So on the one hand, talk about what the impact has been on us culturally, and then anything that surprised you. I mean, were you surprised at how bad you discovered things really are for people? Maybe things that went beyond what you describe as your own experience of that short attention span.
Right. Because I think everybody's aware of the media tsunami, right? That we're spending 4 to 9 hours a day on our mobile devices, and average Westerner consumes about 10 hours of media a day. But that stuff's kind of in the news. Wall Street Journal and other places are reporting on that. As a therapist, what I was concerned about is, what is this doing to us? It's not just that we're preoccupied or that we're distracted, or that, we kind of easily baited. We're easily baited into, oh, look at that cool video. Oh, look at, but as a therapist, my heart is for people and for their well-being. And so what I began to look into in the research was, what is this doing to us? And human beings are highly empathetic creatures. And when 9/11 happened, one of the stunning pieces of research that came out was the men and women who watched the unfolding events, the Twin Towers on television, experienced the same PTSD as people on the streets in New York. And so one of the big ideas is your exposure to the news of the world, the latest shooting, the terrible earthquake, that it is actually traumatizing to the soul. And we're wondering why, for example, why is depression up? Why is anxiety disorders up? Suicide is pandemic right now, like way off the charts. And you look at human beings don't seem to be doing well. And all our medicating, the overeating and all that kind of thing. Well, why? As a therapist, I want to ask why and how do we help people get better? Part of it is this. The world right now is perfectly designed to fry your soul. You're just exposed to too much. And then you add the pace of life on the top of that. Things like family dinners are actually becoming very rare. People don't enjoy making meals anymore. So it's takeout or it's microwave or, what can I grab on a go? I don't like what that's doing to the human soul. And then I read another fascinating book. Shaun, a guy wrote a book. I'm sorry, I'm looking for it on my bookshelf right now. It's The World Outside Your Brain is the name of the book. But the opening chapter is fascinating. He says the war on the human soul right now, the last piece of real estate is your attention. Everybody is competing for your attention. And so, I jump in a cab and suddenly the TV screen on the seat starts playing ads at me. And I pull into the gas station to fill my own car up and the TV screen starts playing ads at me. And I'm like, I can't get away from this. Everyone is vying for my attention. But here's one of the big ideas. So down through Christian history, the ability to give God your attention was considered one of the essentials for spiritual growth, for human well-being, for emotional wholeness. Like just our ability, the Psalm says they looked to him and were radiant. Hebrews urges us to fix our eyes on Jesus. And I found that very difficult to do personally. Like my prayers were like bottle rockets. They were just quick little, and so the collective effect of all this, I think what it's doing is it is atrophying the soul. It's really, like I said, it's pushing us into the shallows. It's making it difficult to be present, not only to one another and to the things that we love, but to God.
Well, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, actually, with the volume of media and everything that we're exposed to. It gets bigger and bigger every year. The amount of traumas we're taking on from the world over is just out of control. I mean, it's this constant cycle of death and mayhem and just kind of awful stuff. But I'm thinking back to when I was growing up, or maybe even in my early 20s or 30s. We were aware of things going on in the world. And, when I hit college, we did sort of have the early stages of the internet. But the amount of things we're just aware of is probably more than we're, on the one hand, even able to process, but carry or do anything significant with. Most of it's stuff we don't even need to yet. I liked what you said earlier about kind of we're baited. I mean, so much of what's in the headlines is all clickbait, and it's designed to make you go, oh, I'm missing out if I don't know about this or if I don't comment on that. So I feel like we're kind of like a hamster on a wheel, just constantly going from one trauma to the next.
Yes, and the good news is this isn't the equivalent of persecution. I mean, we're not in jail. We have a choice. You can limit your media intake. You can cut back on the amount of time you spend on your mobile device. And if you do, you create margin in your life for the things that actually nourish the soul. And it was the realization. Well, here's one of the beautiful pieces. So there's a piano in our house. It's an old piano. It was given to us by my wife's mother. But my wife, Stacy, loves to play the piano. I have not heard the piano in our house for 7 years. Like, that's how busy we got. And as we began to realize, wait a second, hold on, like we are running our souls so thin. We're not even doing the things that we enjoy anymore and the things that bring us life. So as we began to, do the practices that, we'll talk about in this book, simple daily things. Here's the cool thing, Shaun. I walk in the house of the day and there's piano music. And it was like, yes, that's it. Like that is the sign that my wife is doing well. One of many signs, right? Time for my grandchildren. I can enjoy their presence again. All kinds of little indicators, barometers that your soul is doing well again.
Well, and one of the things I appreciated as far as us working to correct course, so to speak, is a practice you call the 1 minute pause. So talk to us about that simple practice as maybe the starting point for moving in a new direction, and how that simple thing could be a powerful force for change in our lives.
Yeah, look, we can't become monks, and we're not going to go, live on an island in the South Pacific as much as, we would love to. So I had to find things in my own life that I could do daily, like accessible. Let's just be real and go, look, love to spend an hour with God every day. It's not going to happen. So what can I do? And one of the things that Jesus began to show me is that nowhere in my day did I pause. If there was downtime, if I was in a commute, well, I'm listening to podcasts. Or, if I'm waiting to pick somebody up at the airport, I'm on my phone and I'm flipping through this, that, and the other thing. I'm getting email done. And Jesus says, I want to just teach you to pause. So 1 minute where you do nothing. You just nothing. You don't make grocery lists. You don't, repent of the email you shouldn't have just sent. Just nothing. You just be quiet and you learn what the Desert Fathers called was benevolent attachment. You learn to let it go. In 60 seconds, I can do that. And I don't know that I can maintain it for a whole day, but for 60 seconds, I can stop. I can let it go and just breathe. And it, it's like the field of dreams. If you build it, he will come. You create a little bit of margin in your life, and God is very happy to meet you there. He's right there.
Well, one of the interesting concepts from a book I read earlier this year, Jefferson Bethke has a book that's similarly themed like yours, is kind of saying no to the hustle and the crazy and kind of stepping back a bit. But in that book, he talked about we seem to think that we're robots, that we can just keep going and never ever stop. And the reality is that just catches up with us. And I love the simplicity of that 1 minute as a starting point. And I think long term that will lead to maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes or goodness, right, maybe even an hour. Who knows?
Right. Okay. So here's the cool thing. So we put an app out. We developed an app called the 1 minute pause. It's free. You can get it Apple and Android. And it will guide you through. You can do a 1 minute, or you can do a 3 minute, or you can do a 5 minute, or a 10. And there's music, and there's beauty, and there's like guided prayer to just settle into pausing during our day. It's become so helpful to us now that at our offices here at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. every day, monastery bells ring out in the building. It's very disruptive. It stops meetings, it interrupts phone calls, but everybody in the building stops for 60 seconds. And it's just a reset. Now, I think, again, as a therapist, I think this does wonderful things for the human soul. But there is research as well to show that it literally resets your brain, that when you come back from pausing, you are more attentive. You're alert again. And as Jefferson was saying, that's a good book, by the way, and it's a little more graphically titled than Say
Yes.
No to the Hustle. Yeah.
Yours is, as a guy who works in Christian publishing, yours is perfectly titled and positioned for your audience.
Exactly. So, but here's the idea. We're asking our souls to live at the speed of the smartphone, right? Because we have the technology, we can get so much done. Oh my goodness. And we have to allow ourselves to be human beings again, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience. You just pause during your day, just stop what you're doing and just let it all go. breathe, reset. It's very healing.
Well, and it's kind of funny to think about, but I have an aunt who's a cloistered nun. She's lived in a monastery for, goodness, I think it's close to 60 years at this point. She's quite up there in age, but they have days that are full of ritual and practice and prayer times, and she's one of the most peaceful women I've ever met on the planet as far as the joy of the Lord that she carries and the look on her face. She's the only person I've met, and these sort of practices are just day in and day out, part of her life every single day.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And there are people for whom that is literally a vocation. It is a calling. For the rest of us, what we have to do is we have to figure out, like I said, it's not persecution. We actually have choices that we can make. You can take back some of the real estate of your attention and use it in healthier ways that, for example, beauty. So one of the things I talk about in the book is the power of beauty. And it came out of a really interesting experience. I was counseling a woman a number of years ago who had been through just a terribly traumatic event. And I couldn't help her. I couldn't figure out, what does a traumatized soul need? Now, I know that ultimately, she needed God, and she needed the river of living water that John 7 talks about flowing from within us, that Psalm 23, he restores my soul, but I couldn't get her there. So I'm sitting in the session one afternoon, and I notice she's got this lovely blouse on with these little embroidered flowers. And Jesus said to me, ask her about the flowers. And I said, I'm just struck by the fact that you're still, although you've been through such heartbreak, you're still choosing flowers. And her facial expression completely changed. She perked up. There was a little bit of light in her eyes. And she said this, she says, oh, only beauty helps. And then I began to do some research on that as a therapist, and find that beauty heals the soul. And now here's the cool thing, Shaun. Like, we need oxygen, right? So God saturates the world with oxygen. It literally renewable supply of oxygen. And we need water. And so we're the blue planet, and we are literally saturated in this supply of water. So human beings need that. But God also saturated the world with beauty. It's everywhere you look. The frost on the window pane, the music playing on your stereo, the flowers in your home, on and on. Human faces are beautiful. City streets at night are beautiful. Like, God saturated the world with beauty. He must know that we need it. But most people don't practice, quote, beauty. We don't stop and take it in and let it minister to our souls. And so I become a beauty fanatic now. Like, everywhere, when I see it, when I hear it, when I observe it, stop, drink it in, let it, because of the inundation, because of the pace of life, your soul needs some things that restore the soul. And beauty is free. It's free. It's everywhere. Like you can learn to take it in and let it do its healing thing.
Well, and, that kind of makes me think about a book proposal I saw, maybe 6 to 8 months ago. And it was this whole book of kind of devotion / meditation, but it was looking at things in nature, like reflecting on the beauty of a rock or a beauty of a leaf. And at the time I was like, well, that seems kind of silly. Like, why do I need to reflect on that? But now as I try to think in the context of what you just shared, well, I'm actually reflecting on the beauty that God put into that thing. It may seem like a trivial thing, but it is wonderful. It is amazing. It is beautiful.
And here's the fascinating thing. So, for example, a 20-minute walk in a forest lowers the cortisol levels in your body. So that the stress-induced chemicals, the flight or flight response. We live constantly redlining. Like, we live hypercharged. And that's why most people, when they get home in the evening, would describe themselves as exhausted, spent, spun up. Man, I'm just still so wired. Well, you need things then that counteract that. And nature, there's so much research on this. It's just enormously cool. Nature counteracts the freneticness of it. So yeah, to actually look at the beauty of a leaf, to listen to a stream, and just watch the wind through the grasses. It does these wonderful things in your body, and it does these wonderful things in your soul. And Psalm 23 restores my soul. How does he restore my soul? Well, he led me into nature, David says. It was the streams and the meadows. And there were other places David could have gone. He could have gone into the temple. He could have gone into his house. He could have gone into Jerusalem. But God took him into nature to restore his soul. And the World Health Organization reported that we now spend 93% of our lives indoors. 93% of your life, where you can't access the healing power of the created world that God made for you. So if we get intentional about it, we can. Like, you can learn, park a little farther away and walk to the office building. Just little choices like that where you get to drink it in. I go outside every day because I live a normal life. I have an office building. I have a staff. We have meetings. We have phone calls. But a couple times a day, I get up, I walk out, and I just walk around the building. That's all I do. It takes me 180 seconds. I just get up, walk around the building, and it is such a reset. It's one of many practices that the overall effect, the cumulative effect is, my soul is better.
Next, I'd love for you to talk to us a bit about meditation. That's a word that has a lot of baggage. If you bring it up in Christian circles, you're not always sure what kind of a response you're going to get, but talk to us about positive aspects of meditation, so to speak, and why it needs to make a comeback in our daily Christian practices.
Yeah, we got to be really quick about what we mean by that, because I think that there are very healthy concerns about it. I think that the mindless, spinning of the prayer wheels in a Buddhist temple, I don't think that is helpful. I don't think that's genuine praying. I think in order to pray, the first thing you have to do is be present, right? So if you're distracted and you're fried, most people have a very hard time praying. Okay, so the next practice that I describe in the book is, I mentioned benevolent attachment, and it is learning to release all things to the care of God. So, Jesus gives the invitation when he says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And then Peter gives the invitation later in 1 Peter where he says, cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. So learning to slow down, to be still and know that he's God. And in those moments of slowing down, in those moments of pausing, learning to release everything to God, to do exactly what the gospel invites you to do, and that's to turn all of the worry and the hurry and your fears and all it, just turn it over to the Lord for even a few moments. It's wonderful. It is unburdening. Like you're like, wow, I feel better. That is a kind of Christian meditation, because then I can actually give God my attention. What are you saying today, Lord? What are you bringing to mind? I'm now present to read scripture and let it soak in and think about it. I just am embarrassed how I fly through the day. I fly through it. And there are no moments for us to be still and know that he's God and let his love minister to us. But if you create those moments, they're pretty swell.
John, in terms of all the practices that you share in the new book, for you, what has had the biggest impact on your soul and your relationship with God?
Wow, that is good. I think, okay, so let me drive to the absolute epicenter of the human experience. So one of the things that really bothered me over the years was what a needy creature I am. I have to sleep every day. I have to eat every day. I have to breathe. I just am so, I want to be the robot, right? Like I want to go and not need, and And I began to see the neediness as this beautiful restraint that God built into the world. Like, you can't go 4 days without water, folks. No human being can. Like, you got to drink, and so on and so forth. So that then took me into I am the vine, you are the branch. And I realized I didn't understand the passage. So I began to look into it and look into the human condition and look into what did the history of Christian spirituality say about this? Union with God. We are made for union with God. Like an actual interweaving of your being with the being of God. It's not just believing God. It's not just worshiping him. But we are invited into a united life with God. And as we learn to be one, to unite our lives with the life of God, then all of his resilience can flow through your being. I'm a more patient person in traffic now. I used to not be a very patient guy, and I'm a more loving person now. I'm a more forgiving person, not because John Eldredge is amazing, but because I'm allowing Jesus Christ to saturate my being. So I would say the big one for me, Shaun, is union, cultivating union with God.
When you think of a reader, say, getting to that last page of the book, closing the back flap, so to speak, what does success look like for this book? Like, how will you know that a reader has gotten that major theme, that major thing that you hope every single person takes away from their time in the book?
So in the last chapter, I recommend having a couple barometers that are personal to you that let you know that you are living sanely. Now, for me, it's my daily walk. And I'm talking 20 minutes. I don't go for a wilderness hike for hours in the mountains. 20 minutes, go around the neighborhood. If I'm taking my walk, I'm living well. If it's been 2 weeks, I'm off the rails again. So you should have a couple barometers. If you enjoy cooking, when was the last time you made a meal? If you enjoy journaling, when was the last time you journaled? When was the last time you read a book, for heaven's sakes? Right? Just a couple things that let you know my life is back on track. Because if you're living well, one of the big ideas, most of your listeners are looking for a richer life. They want a deeper experience of God and all the joy that brings. Here's the big idea, folks. Your soul is the vessel that God fills. If your soul is fried like a raisin, it's very difficult to receive all of the gifts that God is giving. So if our souls get better, and I can take my walk, and I can make dinner, and I can live like a human being, my soul is in a place to receive all of the graces that God is sending me every day.
Well, and I would say if you want to take that to a whole new level, once you discover what those barometers are for you, have your spouse or a trusted friend, somebody who can occasionally say, hey, have you read a book lately? Have you taken your walk this week? And because sometimes we need another person outside of our day-to-day experience to check in with us, because we'll tend to push it to the side until we get to this frenzied, crazy place. But yeah, that might be another check and balance for each of us to make sure we're living this out.
Yeah, that's good, Shaun. That's a good idea.
Well, John, for the listeners who'd like to find out more about you, your ministry, your books, where are some of the places we can find you on the web?
Simplest thing is go to johneldredge.com. We also have an organization called Ransomed Heart, and that has a website. But you can type in John Eldredge podcast or something, and that'll get you there.
Well, like we do with every episode, we'll have detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with John and pick up your own copy of the book. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with John Eldredge. Once again, our book today was Get Your Life Back, Everyday Practices for a World Gone Mad. Again, for more on John and the book, a few great places to start are his website at johneldredge.com. You can also find out more at ransomheart.com. And John, I just want to say thanks so much for sharing with us today. It's been a great pleasure and an honor to finally have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Shaun. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.